It was just about quitting time for the hundreds of workers that worked inside the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory located on the 8th, ninth, and 10th floors of the Ash Building in Manhattan, New York City on March 25th, 1911. The bell rang at 4:45 p.m. to dismiss the workers, the majority of them women, who went to get dressed, put on their coats and hats to go out into the New York City cold. Just a few seconds later, one of the cutters on the 8th floor noticed a small amount of smoke emitting from one of the bins underneath the cutting table, where they had dumped approximately 2 months' worth of scrap material. That individual, as well as several other cutters, grabbed pails of water off the wall where they had been hanging for this problem and attempted to put the fire out, but they were unsuccessful, and the fire quickly flashed up and across the hanging shirtwaist, causing a massive fire. Almost immediately after the fire began and quickly grew out of control, individuals on the 8th floor attempted to evacuate down the various exits, but unfortunately the stairwells themselves had been locked to prevent theft by the women who worked in the factory, so their purses could be checked before they left for the day. But the problem was, only the people on the 8th floor at this point knew that there was a fire. Someone on the 8th floor attempted to call the 9th floor to let them know there was a fire, but nobody answered. They then successfully called the 10th floor, who answered, and then began to evacuate people up onto the roof, who escaped across to another building from some boards that were dropped by students in a nearby building. Now, there were 7 total potential exits from the 8th, ninth, and 10th floors of the Ash Building. There were freight elevators on the Green Street side, which is one corner of the building, with a set of stairs next to it. And then there were a set of passenger elevators on the other side of the Washington Place side, near another stairwell there. And then there was a fire exit that was essentially just an iron ladder that was bolted to the outside of the building, as well on the Green Street side. But there were multiple problems with specifically the stairs. Number one, all of the stairway doors were locked by the factory owners to prevent theft, so they could check all of the women's stuff before they left for the day. Additionally, they were spiral staircases, and they went all the way up to the doors, so the doors to the actual stairways themselves opened inward. So as the crush of women attempted to get to the door, they couldn't get the door open because number one, it was locked, and number two, it opened inward. Eventually, one of the men on the 8th floor that actually had the key unlocked the door and opened it, but this created a chimney effect which allowed the fire to go from the 8th floor up to the 9th and 10th floors. When the fire itself reached the 9th floor, that is when the women on the 9th floor were notified that there was a fire. Many women then ran to the fire escape, but unfortunately it was likely broken before the actual fire itself, and as 20 people were attempting to climb down it, it collapsed and killed all 20 of them. Back inside the building, the fire was rapidly progressing across the 8th floor as well as up the staircase to the 9th and 10th floor, with still several hundred people needing to evacuate. At this point, the Green Street stairs, the Green Street freight elevators, as well as the fire escape are no longer usable by anyone who is still trapped in the factory, which leaves the passenger elevators on the Washington Place side as well as the staircase on the Washington Place side. Unfortunately, on the 9th floor, the man who had the key for that staircase had already evacuated, which meant that no women could get through the door itself. This left the women specifically on the 9th floor 2 options. Get aboard one of the elevators that was still functioning due to the bravery of 2 men, Joseph Zito and Gaspar Mortellaro, or jump to the ground below. Gaspar's elevator went out of service relatively quickly because the heat buckled the rails his elevator traveled on. However, Joseph Zito made several trips up to the 9th and 8th floors to grab women and bring them down. On his last trip, several women began swinging with their shears, and he was stabbed multiple times as 40 women clambered onto his elevator that was supposed to fit 10. By the time he began traveling down with the last group of women, the fire broke the cable and he tumbled to the bottom, where he landed in the basement with a broken hip, multiple stab wounds, and nearly drowned from the water the fire department was using to put the fire out. Now, with all of the available exits effectively eliminated by the fire, this left the women that were still trapped on the 8th and 9th floors one option: jump. Now, firefighters had deployed life safety nets in an attempt to catch the women that were jumping from the 8th and 9th floors, but unfortunately they were too high, and any woman that managed to land in the life safety net immediately ripped through them and died on impact with the ground. In total, 62 people would jump from the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory in an attempt to escape the rapidly advancing flames. In total, 146 people would die in the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire, 123 women and 23 men, with the youngest being 14 years old and the oldest being 43 years old. Now, in the aftermath of the fire, the two owners of the building, Max Blank and Isaac Harris, would go on trial for their role in the no fire safety inside the building. Eventually, they would be found not guilty through a combination of, well, bribery, as well as their lawyer's plan of making the victims of the fire repeat their story so many times to prove that because their story didn't change, it meant that they were lying. Now, both owners would go on to own other factories that would have fire safety violations, including one factory that had its exit doors locked again to prevent theft. When it was discovered, they had to go on trial, pay a $20 fine, and then the judge apologized to them for the inconvenience. Now, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire would lead to a number of improvements in workplace safety, as well as a number of unions forming based upon the disaster of the fire. Yep, it's a whiteboard video. So, what made the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire so bad? Number one is the exits that everyone talks about, but nobody really ever goes into detail. So we're going to go into detail here, as well as the actual layout of the factory itself. So looking at this is the 8th floor diagram of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. Over here on this end, we have the green cutters tables. These ran parallel to Green Street. We have Green Street here, Washington Place here, just to give you an orientation to the actual building itself. So these tables right here were the cutters. These were primarily men. They would cut the fabric to the proper lengths and then take them over to the women at the sewing tables, who would then sew them into the actual shirtwaist. If you don't know what a shirtwaist is, it's basically a blouse for women that was very popular in the early 20th century. So each of these tables right here had a different number of sewing machines on it. This one had 24, and then these four right here alternated between 36 and 34 per table. There were some additional cutters tables up here, but they're kind of nebulous in different sources of exactly how many they were and where they were. So looking at the overall diagram here, we have 7 potential exits. We have our fire escape here, which, don't let this fool you, this was literally just an iron ladder that was bolted to the outside of the building. We have a staircase here, which is a spiral staircase. We have 2 freight elevators, so that makes 4. Then over here in the Washington Place corner, we have 2 passenger elevators here, and then another set of stairs here. So in this entire area, in the event of a fire, there are technically 7 places that could be used as an actual exit. So on March 25th, 1911, when the actual fire started, it originally broke out in this general vicinity right here. It's a terrible fire, but it will do. Your fire first breaks out here. Now, right here around the Green Street stairs was a wooden partition right here. And it starts on this end of the table, underneath the table, and quickly spreads up and starts to spread out. Now, this door right here, this one right here, opened inward. And it was locked at all times, specifically so that they could make the girls line up at the door so that they could check their purses and their clothes to make sure they weren't stealing. So as soon as the fire started, someone had to come over here and unlock this door and then come in here and open this door to get in. Now, the doors to both staircases, the Green Street one and the Washington Place one, also opened inward. The reason being is that the stairs went all the way up to the very edge of the door itself. And so if you opened it outward, as it should be, it would swing over the stairs and actually block the stairs. So they couldn't have it open that way, otherwise no one could get out at all. So they had to have it open inward, which, if you've watched any of my videos, is always a bad problem because you get a crush of people at the door and then you can't get the door open because you have to pull it towards the actual crowd themselves. So anyway, you have the fire start here. You have several cutters who see it, who attempt to grab pails of water that are on the wall here and on the wall over here to take it over and put it out. None of them are successful. The fire very rapidly spreads upwards and begins to go this direction, and this direction. People are starting to stream. We're going to use a different color. People are starting to stream out this door this way, into here, and into the stairs to go down. A couple people go upstairs to go up to the roof. Why you would do that at this point, I don't really know, but some people do weird things when they panic. So they come out, they start going down. The problem is this door here and this door here get left open. So as this fire starts to spread and the smoke starts to come out, it filters in here and goes up the staircase like a chimney, because this is a spiral staircase, so you're going to have a bunch of oxygen that's flowing upward. As this fire starts to burn in here, it starts to go upward. It gets to the 9th floor and the 10th floor. So you have people coming out this way, people coming over here to the stairs here. This door gets unlocked. Multiple people can make it out to the Washington Place stairs in the actual 8th floor, and then the elevators both here are working. Now, as the fire starts to progress, it takes out this staircase and both of these elevators because this whole section over here is burning, right? Everything over here is essentially on fire. These staircases, these elevators have effectively been eliminated as an effective escape plan. So now you are left with the stairs over here and these 2 passenger elevators, as well as the fire escape right here. But as soon as people begin to use the fire escape, a couple people get down, and then approximately 20 people are trying to climb down the fire escape at once, and it dislodges from the wall, falls, and kills all 20 of them on the escape. So this is just the 8th floor. We have 3 usable exits at this point, 2 that are relatively slow, 1 that is still properly functioning, basically until the very end of the fire, specifically for the 8th floor. But what about the 9th floor and the 10th floor? Well, the 10th floor, everyone but 1 person made it out because they all went up to the roof and then were helped across to another building by a bunch of students in a building next door. But the 9th floor is a whole different story. So the 9th floor of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory was essentially the same way as the 8th floor, except the entire floor was sewing tables. All of these had sewing tables all the way across, and there were some examiner's tables right here, so that when women finished their shirtwaist, they take them over here to be checked, and then they would be proved, or they had to redo it, or whatever. So, on the day of the fire, the bell rings at 4:45 p.m. to dismiss them, and they all come over here to their dressing room to get their coats and their hats on because it's cold in New York City in March, and then they come over here and they line up at this door where it's locked in order to have their bags searched to make sure they're not stealing. As they're standing here waiting to be dismissed, waiting to have their search done, someone comes up the stairs at the same time as the fire and the smoke comes up the stairs and comes out this way and says that there's a fire. Essentially, they arrive at the same time and is the first notification for anyone on the 9th floor that there is a problem on the floor below them. So many of these people, there are several hundred people on this floor at this point. Many of these people run this direction to attempt to get down the stairs here. Some of them managed to get through here and get down to the stairs and managed to run past the fire, down the stairs, past the smoke and fire, down to the bottom of the floor. But very quickly, this staircase, this elevator, and this elevator are effectively eliminated because of fire. Some of them come over here to the fire escape, managed to make it down, but some of them on the fire escape were of the 20 people that were on there when it fell off the building and plunged them to their deaths. So many of them come over here to the actual stairs themselves and get to this stair and they try and open the door. Won't open. It has been locked. They look for the man who has the key for these stairs. He is long gone. He has evacuated himself. He is gone. The stairs are still locked. So their next option is to come down here to these elevators. Now, the 2 men running the elevators make multiple trips to the 10th floor, the 9th floor, and the 8th floor, loading as many people on as they possibly can, over and over and over again. These elevators were designed for 10 people, exactly 10 people. Many of them took loads of 30 or 40 people until this elevator right here, the rails buckled under the heat from the fire. Eventually, this elevator, as the man driving it was taking 40 people down in his load, the cable snapped and it plunged to the bottom of the elevator shaft, where he would lay there and suffer in the water rapidly filling the base of it from firefighters putting the fire out, as well as multiple stab wounds and several fractures in his body. He would end up surviving, though. So at this point, on the 9th floor, stairs are gone because of fire. Elevators are gone because of fire. Stairs are effectively gone because no one can get through the door because it's locked. Elevator's gone because of fire. Elevator is gone because of fire. So their only option at this point is to jump out the windows, of which approximately 62 women would choose to do so. But one of the other things that made this particular fire so bad is that these tables were set approximately 32 to 36 inches apart. But not only was that incredibly close for tables, that's basically 3 feet, it's basically a doorway of movement. Both sides of the tables were used for sewing machines. So you'd have a sewing machine with a chair here, and then a sewing machine with a chair here, and then here. So there was there were chairs the entire length facing either direction. So if you were a little bit late getting up from your machine on the day of the fire and say you're over here back in this corner, you have to either go this direction and go through the fire where everyone is jammed, or go this direction and go over here, hopefully to make it on an elevator before they went down. In fact, one particular woman who had gotten up over here went between the tables and then ran across the tables to get to the elevator, and then she ended up sliding down the elevator cable and landed on top of the elevator and then got knocked down into the basement by people falling on her. She ended up surviving but was unconscious for most of it. But yeah, that's why the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire was so bad. It was because it was very crowded. The exit situation was atrocious, as well as there was no alarm system. There was no real way of putting out a fire. There was essentially nothing.